Now, the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show.
Well, even in the UP where I'm from, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same things wrong over and over and over and over again.
That was affirmation, you know, confirmation to Cam that everything that he's doing is working.
This was definitely my biggest college win so far, but I hope to wrestle a lot better than that because that's not going to get me at the top of the podium.
I'm excited because we have the opportunity to play them. It's a big game for both teams. It is in Breslin, and hopefully it'll be rocking.
With the first meeting between Michigan and Michigan State getting postponed earlier this month due to COVID-19 issues within Michigan's program, it is finally time for the Spartans and Wolverines to tip off here at the Breslin Center on Saturday. Michigan is coming into this game with 3 straight wins after beating Northwestern earlier this week, while the Spartans are coming off of a very tough loss at Illinois. It kept Tom Izzo up at night when he got back into town from Champaign, and it's why he also called an early morning staff meeting the next day to try to figure out the question that has seemed to haunt the Spartans all season. How do they fix the turnovers?
Well, even in the UP where I'm from, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same things wrong over and over and over and over again. It is frustrating, I'm sure, to everybody, and it comes in bunches. People say, well, your offense first half didn't look very fluid. Well, when you have 9 turnovers in 20 minutes, what's there to be fluid about? So we did some things that, you know, you can't win big games on the road doing that. The problem is, as you saw the second half, you know, we have 2 turnovers and 1 was a charge, so we have 1 turnover in 20 minutes. We're just consistently making the same mistakes, and that's got to be rectified. But you hold a team to 41-31% from the 2 and 3. Team scores 55 points or whatever, you should win those games. I don't care if you're home and a road against ranked teams or unranked teams.
What did you think about your energy in Illinois?
You know, I think at the start that's a problem too, you know, and then after the first 10 minutes you could see it pick up, but by then you're 11 down and you're playing from behind. The starts in general in some of these games has been very average. And it's not from a lack of practicing or this or that. I still don't think we have great leadership, and one of our leaders is Gabe, and he's struggled the last couple games offensively. And I don't care who you are, where you are, if you struggle yourself, it's hard to lead others. So, you know, we're good guys. We just got to do a better job of taking care of the ball early. We got to do a better job of starting out, I think, games.
You have early morning staff meetings that you call, especially after maybe a game like the Illinois game. You have a huge game coming up on Saturday against Michigan. What's the emphasis? What do you try to get across in these meetings?
Well, I told each player late last night when we got back to, you know, use the mirror for something else than to brush your teeth or comb your hair. Take a look in the mirror and say, what could I do? What could I do to improve how I'm doing? And then it's our job to take the collection of eyes in the mirror and combine it to a better team. I told my staff the same thing, and that's what the early morning, you know, what is each individual, what could he do a better job of? And then what could I do a better job of? And figuring out, I think it's frustrating for everybody to figure out how consistently we can turn the ball over like we do. I mean, we threw one out of bounds. We almost hit it was a 5-foot pass, and it's not anybody's fault. I mean, of all the people, Max Christie's about as solid of a player, but you can't do those things and win games. And so that's what the early morning meeting is about, is figuring out what we can do better as a staff, and then players think about what they can do better, and then at practice put them together.
Well, you were supposed to face Michigan for the first time, didn't happen. Now this is going to be the second meeting per se. What have you noticed about Michigan this year? And now at 2, I mean, just fingers crossed, obviously you get to play at the Breslin Center on Saturday.
Yeah, you know, that's true, fingers crossed. But, You know, I think they're getting better now because their freshmen are starting to play a little better, and they shot the ball really well at Indiana the other day. But they have, you know, this was a top 4 team coming into the season, you know, so no surprises. I mean, I think everybody's going to see Illinois struggled a little bit, Michigan struggled a little bit, Purdue has struggled a little bit, you know. Us in Wisconsin have actually been a little more surprise teams. And but at the end of the year, you know, everybody's going to come back together, and Michigan will be a very good team because they are a very good team. They have good talent, and I think they've got a heck of a leader in the Brooks kid. I think he's really good. He's a fifth-year kid, you know. And the other night we play against guys that are fifth and sixth year. Williams is a sixth-year guy. Frazier's a fifth-year guy. You know, experience does matter, especially at those guard positions, and they've got that. Because
you didn't get to play in that first meeting, are you a little bit more jazzed or a little bit more excited just because it's here at the Breslin and, you know, you get your shot? You know, I'm never a little more with Michigan. I always, if I didn't play them for 2 years, I'd always be excited. If I played them 4 times in 1 year, it'd be exciting. I mean, that's what Judd Heathcote used to call the privilege and the advantage of playing in the Big Ten and playing where there are rivalries, you know. And so I'm more excited because it's home. No, you know, sometimes it's fun to go on the road and win games, but I'm excited because we have the opportunity to play them. It's a big game for both teams. It is in Breslin, and hopefully it'll be rocking. But I don't know if the word more comes into your rivalry. Since I got here, more started 20, 30 years ago, and it's never more than it is now. So it's always a more game. All right, well, good luck on Saturday against Michigan, and I appreciate the time. Well, thanks, Audrey. Now, hopefully we're going to do a better job of just not turning over. I think you and I talked earlier that, you know, when you're a free throw away, I mean, we're on the free throw line at the end of the game to win 2 games maybe that you lose, or you're sitting there undefeated in the conference and everybody's happy. And yet it's hard for people to realize. They see the free throw shooter. Usually the games are lost early in the game, and that's been the case for us in both games. So we know what's wrong. We got to fix it, and the fixing comes by playing better and coaching better, and we're going to try to do both. Yeah, you got great job security. How about that? Look at it on that side. Yeah, at least for 1 more game. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thank you. If you remember, the Spartans and Wolverines closed out the regular season last year with back-to-back games against one another in a 3-day span. And in the first meeting at the Chrysler Center, Michigan was able to clinch the Big Ten title outright thanks to a 1-point win over MSU. This year's chapter of the rivalry has yet to be written, and when we come back, you're going to hear from a player who is going to experience it for the first time.
Tap into savings when you use your MSU Federal Credit Union Visa Signature Credit Card. The Visa Signature Credit Card gives you more cash back, like 3% cash back on groceries, 2% cash back on gas, travel, and universities, and 1% cash back on everything else. Simply tap to pay with your MSU FCU Visa Signature. It's fast, easy, and convenient. Tap to pay, get more cash back with the MSU FCU Visa Signature Credit Card.
Welcome back to the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show.
Tom Izzo welcomed 3 new transfers to Michigan State's program this offseason, and one of them was Jason Whitens, who spent the last 4 years at Western Michigan. It has always been his dream to don the green and white. He is from the UP, just like Izzo. But as Ian Kress shares, he didn't have a lot of time to enjoy his first and only game that he'd get to play in this year for MSU.
So I'll be 3 months out this Friday, so that's pretty exciting, you know, nearing the halfway point here. Everything feels really good. There's no swelling. Structurally, everything feels really good when I meet with the doctor every home game.
The moment had finally arrived for Jason Whitens, a chance to play at the Breslin Center as a Michigan State Spartan. In the first exhibition game of the year against Ferris State, the transfer from Western Michigan played 3 minutes and 19 seconds. However, those would be the only minutes he would log this season due to a torn ACL on this play. Now take me through what that moment was like. You know, it's your first game as a Spartan and you get in the game late in the second half and then that happens. What was that like and what were you thinking in that moment?
It was tough for sure. You know, it was kind of an anticipated wait for me. I was excited to just contribute to the team in any way possible, and you know, getting my name called was a surreal experience. Going down with the injury, I wanted to get back up because I didn't want to come off the court, obviously. And when I got up, tried walking around, and knew I wasn't good enough to keep playing.
Now this isn't the first time Whitens has suffered a season-ending injury. Almost 3 years to the day of tearing his ACL, Whitens tore his meniscus his sophomore year at Western. What did you learn from that season, you know, having off that you have been able to use this season?
Being patient, because I'm not the most patient person when it comes to this stuff, because I'm a go kind of guy. I didn't handle it as well the first time through the first injury, so this time obviously I have a great atmosphere around me between the guys, the coaches, training staff, everybody that just keeps me patient, keeps reminding me what the end goal is.
That motivation even happens when the team is on the court without him. During walkthroughs prior to games, Whitens will be walking the steps of the arena for rehab, and that's when the team will shout from down below to keep on pushing.
I want them to focus on what they're doing on the court, so for them to yell up to me while I'm doing my thing, that's obviously awesome.
Obviously a well-connected team in that aspect. Have you thought about the possibility of coming back for another year?
That's the goal, you know, that's where my mindset is. Like I mentioned, I love working out, love working on my body, and everything's going great. I have a feeling that I'm going to come back even better this time around. So as long as the conversations with the coaches, Coach Izzo, go good, I would love to be back next year.
Those chances are high for Whitens, considering him and head coach Tom Izzo share a common denominator.
He's a Yooper like I am, so obviously growing up, I always knew of him. Grew up a big Michigan State fan, you know, every step of the way. You know, I lived 30 minutes from Iron Mountain. One of his close college roommates is I played with both his sons coming out of high school. I thought about walking on here, but eventually, you know, with some help, I got to Western Michigan on scholarship.
Now, as someone who grew up in the lower part of Michigan, what is it like growing up as a Yooper compared to, you know, the lower peninsula?
Yeah, we're tough up there, man. You know, it's a great experience. You know, you're not as exposed to as many things, which can kind of disconnect you from certain things, but it's also great because you just have a whole different living experience up there. You know, I had 27 kids in my graduating class, where I talked to a lot of my teammates, and they have, you know, 600, 700, 800, just massive schools.
Jason attended Powers North Central in the UP, where he won 5 state championships in 4 years. 3 of those were in basketball, while the other 2 came from football. So being a part of a winning program is nothing new to him. And hey, speaking of winning, there's another athlete on Michigan State's campus who has been doing a lot of that as of late, and we're going to introduce you to him when we come back.
Welcome back to the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show.
We've made it to Jennison Fieldhouse now because last week Michigan State's wrestling team held 2 major Big Ten meets here in this building. Not only did the Spartans upset number 14 Rutgers on Friday, but on Sunday Cameron Caffey had one of the biggest wins of his collegiate career. Our Nick Mantis sat down with the senior to learn more about him as a wrestler and how his major is leading to his success on the mat.
When you see Cameron Caffey wrestle, you're watching a critical thinker who just so happens to have incredible athletic abilities. This past weekend, he beat Penn State's Max Dean, who's the 2nd-ranked wrestler in the country at 197 pounds.
Would you say that the win over Max Dean was probably one of your best matches you've ever wrestled, or one of your biggest wins in your career?
This might be the biggest win that I've had, but it's definitely not the best I've wrestled. There's a couple matches from a couple years ago, back when I was at 184. They were big wins at the time, but they're also like the best that I ever wrestled. I just, like those matches I still sometimes go back and watch because they're benchmarks for the kind of wrestler that I want to be. This was definitely my biggest college win so far, but I hope to wrestle a lot better than that, because that's not going to get me at the top of the podium.
When Cam's not wrestling, you'll probably find him in front of a computer studying for his computer engineering courses and specializing in cybersecurity.
You know, I feel like when you're thinking about computer stuff, that main vision that you have in your head is like some guy in like a dark room with a hoodie, like hacking or whatever.
Into something, yeah.
That's not too far from the truth, actually. Lots of late nights in dark rooms.
Especially in final season, I bet.
Oh, especially, oh man, anytime there's any project due, yeah, you can be there for double-digit hours.
When it comes to the way in which you wrestle, people think that your gas tank is empty, but the entire time you're thinking and you're looking at the different ways in which you could be a little bit more cerebral in your approach.
Yeah.
And you said, you know,
has anybody ever seen me stop wrestling? No. So it's, you know, people can say what they want, but I'm gonna wrestle the whole time, however tired I am. Yeah.
Do you think that the different things that influence your life, obviously computer engineering, your coding, is that kind of what you're doing on the mat? Is your problem solving and taking a look at, okay, if this isn't working, how can I do this differently?
That cerebral side of it, it might be a bigger part than I even give it credit for. You know, there's problems in both, right? You're wrestling and maybe things aren't working out or something isn't working out. And that will correlate with a bug in code. So you identify the problem, figure out how to fix it, and you fix it. And then something else comes up, and you just keep solving problems until eventually you have a working product.
What do you love most about the way in which you wrestle?
I can score from anywhere. It doesn't matter if I'm on bottom, if I'm on top, if I'm on my feet and the guy is completely behind me about to try to take me down. I can figure it out, and I can figure out a way to score, or at least to squirm out of it. You know, it's just how hard that I make it for people to do the one thing that they practice every day, which is score points, and how I can turn them trying to score points into me getting points. I think that's why people like watching me wrestle, is because points can come from anywhere.
Caffey's coach, Roger Chandler, refers to him as a very cerebral wrestler, and now you know why. His wins also helped Michigan State crack the top 25 rankings for the first time since the 2020-21 season. And we're going to chat with Chandler about it all after the break.
Welcome back to the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show.
In his 6th season at the helm of Michigan State's wrestling program, Roger Chandler challenges his athletes to be the very best version of themselves while they're out on the mat. He wants them to compete for 7 minutes, and there's no question they have listened to their coach during what was one of the Spartans' most difficult stretches of the season. You guys obviously just wrapped up a very busy stretch. 4 dual meets, you won 3 of those, 2 against ranked opponents. And after the Penn State dual meet, you were mentioning how you're starting to see the character of this program really shine through. So for those who may not be familiar with Spartan wrestling, what is that character that you're referencing?
The character of the team is that they're one unified unit, and that's, as a coach, that's what I'm most proud of, is that these guys have taken it upon themselves to, you know, put Spartan wrestling back on the map at a national level. And, you know, it's been something we've talked about for many years now, right? And, you know, you get a new recruiting class every year, and each class buys into it, and it's just a collective buy-in from each and every person within the program.
What would you say, too, about this team's makeup and the personality of this team versus maybe teams that you've coached in the past?
There's a lot of different personalities, but it all works. You know, we have anybody from the comedian to somebody who's very dry and very serious, and you know, and everything in between. And so there's nobody within this program that's ever been alienated. You know, I've seen teams where maybe there's somebody on the fringe, right, and is kind of on the outside looking in, and is he really part of the program or not? And you know, that's not, we have 35 guys on our roster right now. All 35 guys are really, really integrated into the fabric of what we're doing.
How would you describe Cameron's personality then?
Cam is a very calculated individual, and but also at the same time he has a lot of humor to him as well. So he's not the one that's out there always cracking jokes, but he will crack a joke in a serious moment to lighten the mood. So, you know, I really appreciate that about him.
This was interesting. He said that after some of his matches that he has, you'll go up to him and you'll say, well, you won, but maybe you didn't wrestle very good. And so can you describe more of the meaning behind that in a sense, or maybe he feels as though he won a match, but he didn't wrestle to his abilities, or maybe he lost a match, but he wrestled very well.
Cam has some very good strengths that are not very, I don't know, traditional in the sense of wrestling. And he tends to rely on those, like as if they're good habits, but they're bad habits. And fundamental wrestling, you know, when we talk about the fundamentals of the sport, I think he has to go back to the fundamentals of the sport to allow what he is very good at to really flourish. And sometimes he just goes back to, you know, it was funny a couple of years ago is I called him the Michelangelo of wrestling because he was just making up stuff each and every time he'd go out on the mat. And he's done it this year. I remember we're down at Gardner Webb in North Carolina, and he's wrestling kind of a tough match. And he hit a move I've never seen before. And one of my assistant coaches goes, "You haven't seen him doing it?" I go, "No." And then it was all over social media and everything else. But that's just who he is. He'll try anything and anything that's creative, and that's just Cam Caffey.
For you, Roger, 6th season as head coach here. You've been very immersed in the program for years. But what's it been like to be at the helm here and now have, you know, this program as your own for the last 6 seasons?
I don't think it's one person that runs a program. Yeah, I'm the head coach, but it takes a big group of people, and you know, everybody from the student athletes to my assistant coaches. I know I couldn't do this by myself, and I'm very grateful for the people that I have involved in this program, the people that support our program, and really, it's been a big team effort from the alumni to the boosters to the parents. I mean, the list goes on, and I totally embrace that as a coach.
Well, enjoy this much-needed break that you know, are looking forward to, and we really appreciate you sitting down with us for the show.
I appreciate you featuring our program.
The next time the Spartans hit the mat, they will be in College Park, Maryland on February 4th to take on the Terps. As always, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the MSU Federal Credit Union Coaches Show. Have a safe and healthy weekend.